right, welcome to the steaming pile of awesome. And this is the podcast where we watch shitty movies so that the viewers don't have to.
I like that.
I'm this episode's host, Darryn Turzo, and with me as always, Rob Korlak. Say hi to the folks, Rob.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, Darryn. Thanks for having me on this wild ride.
Yeah, and it is a wild one. This week we have the cult classic Masters of the Universe, produced by none other than Canon Films, who went under shortly afterwards. There's a whole lot of backstory on that one. We might have time to get to it at the end.
Oh, I hope so. I hope you save enough time for me, Darryn, because I really honestly feel like I have as much to talk about after we're done talking about the movie as I do during the movie. So I'm going to try and be as brief as I can, because the story behind this movie is almost as good as the movie itself, man.
That's perfect. All right, so let's dive into Masters of the Universe, starring Dolf Lungren.
At the far end of the universe, there is a planet ruled by a being of utter evil. And there is only one man who dares challenge him. They are locked in a battle to the death. A battle that will take them across the heavens.
Stop him!
A battle that will finally be fought.
I want them hunted down and brought to me!
Across the face.
Police! Nobody move!
Of Earth.
I think I'm gonna need some backup.
Can you show us the way?
Of course. No.
From a distant galaxy, they have come to Earth. Dolf Lundgren as He-Man, Frank Langella as Skeletor. Only they have the powers to be Masters of the Universe. Live the adventure.
Starring Dolf Lundgren as He-Man and, of course, Frank Langella as the immortal Skeletor. So this movie, of course, is based on the ever popular He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon, which was based on the toy line back in the 80s. It's something that I grew up on, and the over-under on this movie for me, if I had to guess how many times I've actually watched it, is in the area, I would think, 25 to 30 that I know of, and then childhood, probably a few more. Would that be similar for your number, or am I a crazy person?
Well, no. Well, if you're crazy, I'm right there along with you, man.
Both.
Because you dragged me along for most of the ride. I think that was one of the things early in our friendship, that once we started to get to know each other, and you're like, dude, Masters of the Universe is coming out on DVD and I need to have it. I'm like, I absolutely will watch that with you as many times as you ask. It was one of those things, man. I played with the toys as a kid. I had Snake Mountain and I had Castle Grayskull. So when there was an opportunity to see a real life man perform this role, I had to watch it. It was for sure. I've probably seen it 30 times myself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
If you're crazy, we're both crazy together, man.
Yeah, which is about what I figured. All right, so we got the we're going to go through the plot line, and then we'll go through some other items. Of course, we have to pick out who our favorite characters were, what our favorite lines were, and then I have a few twists at the end, new stuff. So
I can't wait.
Where we pick up in this is Eternia has been defeated. The sorceress has been captured. He-Man and his unit, consisting of only Man-at-Arms and Teela at the time, are defeated in the throne room and forced to use the cosmic key, which is an invention by a character named Gwildor.
Who doesn't appear in any of the cartoons or comic books beforehand.
No, he is just a random thrown in there. My guess is they were saving budget from actual magical creatures that they used in the cartoon.
Mm-hmm. Like Orko, for example.
Exactly, yes.
Right.
So Gwildor has created what's called the cosmic key that can transport the user to anywhere in the galaxy, anywhere in 100 galaxies, as he says later on. That's a lot
of galaxies.
Yeah. So they get into the throne room. They are defeated by Skeletor's crew, and they have to escape using the cosmic key. In a mad dash, Gwildor hits some random buttons. They hop through the portal. They barely manage to use a grappling hook to grab the cosmic key, which comes in very important in a minute. Taking it through the portal with them to where else have they gone but Earth, of course.
Had to be Earth,
so,
right.
Yeah. So they end up on Earth. They quickly meet up, and they realize that the cosmic key is gone. So somewhere along the way, the cosmic key has fallen out of the grappling hook, and now they have no idea where, so they begin the search.
Now, can I interrupt you for a second here? Because one of the things that I thought that was kind of interesting is we have this beautiful matte painting of Castle Grayskull in the beginning of this thing, which really sets the tone. It really made like the people who love the cartoons like sit up and take notice. We're like, oh, okay, they're going there. This is a thing they're doing. But they didn't really. But that was a great moment. And like, did you notice that it looks like it's almost under construction a little bit? Like there's like several levels at the top
in
that
the
are like
throne room. There are several floors missing. It's possibly the worst architecture I've ever seen. Like it's literally suspended pathways all through the place. And you can easily tell where the actual set ends, and it's just a painting of an actual hallway. Yeah. So
thank you, DVDs.
Yes, exactly. Probably looked great on VHS though.
This is my question then, man. Like, is the throne room, is Castle Grayskull's Eternia's Nakatomi Plaza? Like, it's several floors still under construction, but what we've got done is real pretty.
It basically is, yes.
And why are there stormtroopers under Skeleton's regime as well?
We'll definitely get to the stormtroopers, the mini Darth Vaders. So at this point, we're introduced on a side note to two actors, Courtney Cox and, I didn't even write down his name, Tom Paris from Star Trek Voyager, which we're going to call him. So Courtney Cox plays Julie, and her boyfriend is Kevin. Now, Julie's parents died a year ago in the past in this movie, so she is gearing up to move to New Jersey from where I believe is California, but they never really say. The reason I say California is she says she needs to put 3,000 miles in between her and her home, which the only way I think she can get 3,000 miles is going from the bottom of the continent to the top. So California to New Jersey.
And she's leaving Kevin behind. This is not a trip he's going to be making. By the way, Kevin is played by Robert Duncan McNeil. That's Robert his name. Tom Paris from Voyager. He's Robert Duncan.
Yeah, what a wonderful man he is as well.
Never trust a man with three names, right?
Yeah. So Kevin plays, he plays Kevin. Yeah. He's a local band member. And he is staying home. They are going to be splitting up. And the big thing to take away from this is Julie actually blames herself for the death of her parents. So that is why she's moving.
And you know that because she literally says it. She tells him in the car, I blame my
gives him a backstory.
I blame,
or I blame myself,
We don't need to pick it up. It's not subcontext. She literally tells him, it is my fault.
Before Julie can leave, Kevin takes her to the cemetery where her parents are buried to say one last goodbye. And on the way back to their car, they discover the cosmic key. They have no idea what it is. It makes cool noises. It has some really cool lighting effects. So they decide to, of course, steal it.
Right. As you do with all Japanese synthesizers, you must steal it.
Exactly. Which is what they figure it is.
How often does that chance come along? Really?
Yeah, no, once in a lifetime. Once in 1,000 lifetimes, really. So Kevin knows. So Kevin knows a local music shop owner that he's going to take it to and show the cosmic key, which he believes to be a Japanese synthesizer.
That's right.
And as they are playing the notes on the synthesizer, Skeletor is able to trace the location of the second cosmic key because he has his own cosmic key that Gwildor made for him, unknowingly made for him, by the way.
Right.
So Skeletor's army is able to trace the key. They sent a crew of mercenaries to retrieve it.
They find the key, like you said, from them playing it, which they do a whole bunch of times in the movie, and they never realize that it's like getting Skeletor closer to them, which I find hilarious. But like, at no point do the superheroes in the movie be like, "Stop using the key, please."
Yeah, they just keep ramming buttons. Yeah,
just keep hammering buttons. But like, they're sitting around the throne room, and Skeletor's like, "Yeah, we need to go get that key. Send 4 mercenaries." And they're like, "Okay, shouldn't we send like the entire battalion?" And he's like, "No, we need that for Act 3. We can't. We can't use that right now."
and one thing I noticed, and I was going to skim over this, but what I laughed out loud, and I've never noticed this before watching it tonight, but I laughed out loud tonight when I watched it.
Yeah.
Skeletor says, "Gather the mercenaries," and
right.
Evil Lyn literally turns around, and in the same room are 4 mercenaries standing like
already
10 feet behind them.
Say.
And
like,
somehow
that's the sign of a good
hasn't
manager.
Seen them. Yeah,
no,
he
that's the sign of a good manager, man. Like you can predict what your boss wants, man. You can just get it ready.
He was oblivious.
She already knew. She may have suggested it earlier, and he just didn't notice.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about how good these two look? Like, people who criticize this movie talk about how Frank Langella's makeup looks like really bad. And I have never been able to see that. I've always saw it as a skull on his face. And I know it's a lot of latex and putty, but at the same time, like, you can see his facial reactions through that. Whereas anything else that they use now, it's so difficult to see. Like, now they would just CG his face, and maybe it would work like Thanos, and maybe it wouldn't. Like, so, but like, to me, I really loved how he looked. And he's wearing like this like hood. He's got like this like black velvet hood of death that I just absolutely love. And Evil Lyn is wearing like this like gold encrusted fruit bowl maybe on top of her head. It's not.
We are going to get to Evil Lyn's costume at the end. The end. Okay, so back to the story. Yes. They're ramming on the keys at the high school. Tom Paris grabs the synthesizer. He decides to head over to the music shop. Courtney Cox is going to stay behind and just say goodbye to the high school in which she's leaving, which makes sense. So Tom Paris takes off.
Does it?
Lo and behold, have
you ever wanted to say goodbye to a gym before?
Have you ever wanted to get dragged to a music shop with your boyfriend to talk about synthesizers?
On your last day with them?
On your last date. Touché. So she stays, he goes. About 30 seconds after he leaves, the mercenaries show up, and they just absolutely demolish the poor janitor who's in the way. They chase after Courtney Cox, and she is then saved by He-Man and his crew of Man-at-Arms and Teela. Gwildor doesn't do much in this scene.
No, because he's all fixing a car. He doesn't have time.
Exactly. He does turbo boost that
you
car.
don't give Carl the janitor enough credit, man. This guy takes an absolute licking from Beastman and then gets thrown head first through a door.
He does, yes.
He absolutely takes a front gainer head first. They
really do take it to him. Yes.
Oh, he gets destroyed.
The school's been lit on fire by the mercenaries. They've absolutely demolished the building. So Kevin is showing the synthesizer to his music friend, and fire engines and cop cars are whizzing by as they do, and they turn on the police scanner, and Kevin realizes that his girlfriend's probably in trouble and rushes back to the school. At this point, when he arrives at the school, this is beautiful because he shows up. He hasn't asked anybody where his girlfriend is, but he's looking over his equipment that has been hauled out because it's been burnt, and he's upset about the amplifiers. Then he decides to ask, "Where's Julie?"
Do you know how much amplifiers were in the 80s, Darren? Those tubes
the girlfriend's
already,
the relationship's already over. Those amps were good.
That's right.
So at this point, we are introduced to Detective Lubick.
Who,
of course, if you're a big fan of the 80s movies, which I am, my favorite role for him is throughout the Back to the Future series, which he plays.
You've got a real attitude problem, McFly. You're a slacker.
Principal Strickland. He's also one of the top dogs in Top Gun, a Tom Cruise classic from the same kind of era. This guy's
All right,
all
sorry
over
about
the
that.
map, Darren. He has done the same character in every movie, and he has absolutely killed it at this guy. Okay,
Oh, he is absolutely the authoritarian figure of the 80s.
he's something
He's
special.
perfect. He's
Yeah.
shaved head. He is short-tempered. I can only assume by the other actors around him that he's suffering little man syndrome. So he is just one ball of detective angry.
You wouldn't know anything about that, hey?
I don't know any of those things. No.
You're not short at all.
Yeah. So he brings a great source of frustration and comic relief through the rest of the movie, as well as a couple of just absolute gem lines. One of which I've selected for you to pick from at the end of the episode.
Great, wonderful.
So the mercenaries return back to castle, back to the sorcerer's palace,
Right.
and at this point, I'll have you walk us through the lineup of mercenaries.
All right. So these guys have tucked their tail between their legs. They haven't been successful at bringing back He-Man. So we're going to go through these four guys because pretty soon it's going to be really important that we know these four guys. So the first one that is introduced is a guy by the name of Blade. And in my notes, I referred to him as an accountant with an eye patch and some weird wrestling headgear. He, to me, was not menacing at all. He had he looked like he could almost jump on the set of one of the first Mortal Kombat games. But he wasn't particularly menacing to me. Then we had Sarag, which is next, which is probably the coolest makeup I've ever seen in this movie, maybe, for sure. He is number one. He's like this Python-looking dude, and the actor who's playing him is like going super method and like doing like the snake neck thing the entire time. Of course, number three, as you mentioned earlier, is Beastman. And the way I explained Beastman in my notes was he's more Bigfoot than Bigfoot. So hopefully you've seen our first episode of this to get that joke. So yeah, he's more Bigfoot than Bigfoot was. And then, of course, you got Karg. Karg is, once again, a character I don't think was ever in the cartoons, ever. But if you've never seen this movie and you're not really sure what he looks like, just picture the Bride of Frankenstein meets the Grinch, and you pretty much have it pretty much caved.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So the mercenaries return, tails tucked between their legs, and Skeletor is very not happy about them failing their mission to stop and apprehend He-Man. So he absolutely executes Lizard Man.
Oh God!
So
he destroys him,
and
this of course
is a budget. is totally a budget move. His was the most expensive costume, so they had to let him go.
See, and that's interesting because they already had the costume made, man. I just think maybe he was just like so much better than all the others that was making them look cheap.
It was actually rented. So
there you go. It was a rented. Yeah.
So Evil Lynn tells Skeletor that they're not going to fail again. So Skeletor says, "Of course they're not. You're going with them," and literally throws her in with the other mercenaries. And they are dispatched to now return back again and find He-Man and the key.
Without Lizard Man or whatever his name is.
Yes, yeah, another one man down.
I had that toy as a kid, man. Did you know that it it came out after the movie, obviously, because it was never invented before, but it had like a grinder on the inside, and if you push the trigger on its back, sparks would fly out of his mouth.
Terror with Sauron, Skeletor's evil lieutenant with a mouthful of lightning.
That was like his thing he did,
which is like a toy they could make these days.
They could never make that now. They could never do it. It's literally a fire hazard. It creates sparks using a flint on the inside and a grinding wheel. It was something special. And my parents were like, "Yeah, sure, you can buy that. No problem."
Yeah. So the mercenaries are dispatched back to Earth. Kevin and Detective Lubick go back to Julie's house. Detective Lubick steals
where Julie phones him, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, she's looking for Kevin, so she's
looking
tries
for
her
Kevin.
own house.
Yeah.
Did that seem weird to you, or is that like something that you would do?
My guess is she was probably just ramming any number she could. And just reusing coordinates.
Like this is long before the days of cell phones, so I mean, like, we don't even really have an allegory anymore to this, but the idea that, like, if you weren't home, people called places you might be.
Right. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. But
So,
like the fact that she called her own house to me was really odd. Yeah, I'm
So
just chilling at your place without you, woman.
so Detective Lubick realizes that Kevin obviously didn't buy this. Kevin tells him that he found it. Detective
Right.
Lubick steals the synthesizer, the cosmic key, and heads back to the police station. He goes to the music store to verify what it could possibly be.
Right. Not before playing
again,
it, though.
Yes.
And
well,
when
yeah, they
he's
had
playing it, did you see his
Skeletor
face?
knows where they are. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's right.
That
happens.
Yeah. So
Lubick
Skeletor's
is just loving it, man.
Yeah, he does.
He
Skeletor's
would buy
minions show up just as Detective Lubick is leaving. They beat the ever-loving bejesus out of Kevin for a minute or two.
I think
and then
Beastman puts him to a table.
Yeah, and then they strap a truth collar to him to try and get Kevin to tell him when or where the key might be headed.
Yes.
He gives it away. They leave.
No.
They head off to the music shop to find Detective Lubick.
But why did they leave? Did they leave because they got the location out of Tom Paris, or did they leave because they could track the thing from the sky? Because they literally say we can track it from the sky, which makes the whole interrogation kind of just to show off the cool collar.
I think they just really, yeah, exactly. They needed that collar on him. So
that collar was awesome. Like it changed his voice. It looked pretty cool too.
Yeah. We head over to the music store where Kevin's friend is now with Detective Lubick. Mm-hmm. And here is the best Easter egg that I found in this movie. We talked about this just before we got started here tonight. So Detective Lubick is talking to, and I can't remember his name now, who owns the music store. The song playing in the background is a song that I had never realized I heard in my life before the year of 2019. It is the opening credit music in Avengers Endgame. Dear Mr. Fantasy by Traffic is playing in the background. So a really neat connection between this and Endgame, separated by about 25 years.
Oh, way more, because this is 87 it came out. It's 33 years.
32
years, man.
That's 33 crazy. Now. But yeah. So
I don't know his name. I wrote in my notes not Will Ferrell. Because he was giving me like really not Will Ferrell vibes.
He was like a very poor actor as well.
Yeah.
So
why did I find him so annoying?
I stopped the movie at this point.
Yes.
I think it was just his weird acting. So after they realize what it is, or they don't realize what it is, after Lubick is showing him, He-Man and his team show up to the music store just ahead of the mercenaries, and they have a little bit of a standoff with Lubick. They head to the back room for protection. Lubick and the other humans, Man-at-Arms and He-Man, stay out up front. Now this is really interesting because the mercenaries show up and they have about 20 soldiers with them. Like you can literally count on your fingers and toes how many soldiers they have with them.
There's not that many.
No, there's really not that many. And like 5 crash through the front windows and they're immediately all just executed in a line. So they're down to 15. And then another bunch come in and those are all executed. And then another bunch come in and another bunch. And I figured I counted probably about 35 of these Darth Vader wannabes that crashed through the window and got themselves shot.
They're literally called troopers in the credits.
Yeah.
And they're like stormtroopers, but painted black. So like the guy was just like, mix and match. It's fine. Okay, here's something I noticed in this fight scene though, man, because this is like the big stand in the middle of the movie where the good guys are making their kind of final stand against the troop. And like some of these guys had capes on, which I thought was really interesting. Like some of these troopers had capes, some didn't. And I was like, I wonder if that's like a rank system. Like the guys with the capes have just like been around long enough and gotten like their 30-year pins or something.
That would be my guess. It's some kind of ranking system. My guess
didn't
would be
do well against He-Man anyway, so I'm not really sure.
My guess is the first 5 or 10 were probably not caped, and then from there they were caped.
They were just capes all day. Yeah. Capes for days.
So He-Man and Man-at-Arms go through about 30 of these guys. Then Teela joins the fight, and they go through about another 50 of these guys, and they're just like coming in waves. Like I don't know, they're like ants. They're just crawling on top of each other to try and get to their goal. So in the back room, a fight breaks out in between Lubick and Kevin, who's gonna hold the gun, which at this point doesn't really matter because none of them are shooting. Right. At this point, Julie is looking out the window and she sees her mother. So she goes running out into the back alley. Ghost mom. Yeah.
I call her Ghost Mom.
She goes running into the back alley. She says, "Oh, Mom, I missed you so much." And, of course, Mom says, "We've still been alive this whole time. We're working with your friends, and we need that funny synthesizer thing. It's part of the work." So she runs back in, grabs it, hands it to her mom. And, of course, Evelyn in disguise. She says something really sassy and then walks out of the back alley. Mm-hmm. So now the mercenaries and Evelyn have the cosmic key.
This is mega cold, man. Like, Evelyn, probably, like you said, due to budget issues, transforms back into her regular self mid-hug. And I was just thinking at that time, I'm like, man, that bitch is cold. Like, you could have, like, let the hug happen and then, like, morphed after and, like, I got you. But she was, like, mid-hug, she turned back into this chick.
Yeah.
That's cold, man.
It was very cold-blooded. So,
cold-blooded.
And at this point, So Evelyn communicates that they now have both cosmic keys. Skeletor has one, of course. And he shows up when Evelyn lets him know with the other cosmic key and dispatches the Air Centurions, which are...
you knew their
Which names? Are basically... Yeah, Air Centurions, he says, dispatch them. So
excellent.
They are
I'd
basically...
call them flying disc guys.
Yeah. That clever nickname. So the Air Centurions start zooming around the city on what can only be described as hoverboards. Probably
hover discs.
Taken from Back to the Future. So they start zooming around the city, and He-Man, of course, steals a hoverboard, hijacks it, knowing full well how to navigate a hoverboard. And
he did really well for his first time. That's what I wrote in my notes. Yeah.
So he steals the hoverboard and manages to steal the cosmic key back from Evelyn with the grappling hook that lost it in the first place. This thing is kind of like the claw machine in the old claw machines where you could get a teddy bear out of the. Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
In the way that sometimes it grabs tight enough to do something, and then other times it doesn't.
Sometimes it just does not.
At points in the movie, when you look at this, the grappling hook, like the three prongs don't even go together. Like one's like kind of off to the side and the other two are touching. So I don't know how it held anything, but it manages to grab the cosmic key. He-Man now has it.
For the second time in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a great shot.
So
even with that blaster.
Now he mows a very large number of henchmen down on the hoverboard, steals the cosmic key. He's on his way back. So at this time, Skeletor has now located the rest of the crew and captures them, forcing them all to surrender. He-Man comes in. Julie tries to warn him that it's a trap. Skeletor zaps her leg. He-Man at this point demonstrates his amazing, and I'm going to put them in quotation marks, skill as a fighter, because this is just very clearly a bodybuilder who's never had a sword in his hand before day one of shooting. He has no idea what's going on. There's literally trained fighters just falling at his feet. It's an embarrassment of choreography.
It's it's kind of not scripted, man. This is not a fight scene. Yeah. Meanwhile, Skeletor's just like chilling out in the background, watching it go down. Like, I'm gonna let him have this moment because the guy needs some wins here. I just zapped his little friend with poison lightning.
So He-Man eventually stops fighting because Skeletor yells at him. He's forced to submit and drop his weapon and taken prisoner by Skeletor. Skeletor cosmic key zaps out of there. First, he annihilates the second cosmic key so that it's still usable, but it doesn't have the home base programmed into it, which it's very James Bond. I'm going to tell you what my evil plan is and leave you with a chance to foil it.
Well, they could have just threw that thing in a bag of rice and waited overnight. I'm sure it would be fine after.
I don't think they had that technology then.
Oh, maybe not. You missed the best line in the whole movie there.
I don't think I did.
Okay, good.
But
I don't want innocent people to die.
So Skeletor takes off with He-Man and heads back to Eternia. Julie and the others are left on the Earth with the key, but they have no way of getting back. and Julie has been poisoned by the lightning bolt that Skeletor hits her with. So
and this raises the stakes, right? Because Man-at-Arms says to her, the only person that can cure her of this poison is our sorceress. That is it. And it's like, that's the ultimate stake now. Like, now we're on a time crunch. Like,
and while we're on it, who is the sorceress? Why don't you go ahead and identify her for some of her other roles?
Okay, so
just give us the two that we were talking about.
Right, absolutely. When I first saw the sorceress in this movie, my instant thought was, she's nothing like the girl in the cartoon, which is fine. There's nothing about that I ever have a problem with in movies when they try to do their own thing. But like, I noticed that right away. I'm like, oh wow, that's not the sorceress I'm expecting. And then my second question was, is she 50? It's Monica's mom from Friends, right? And she's not just the mom in Friends. Who else is she?
She is the mother. She's Drew Barrymore's mother in The Wedding Singer.
That's right.
Once again, things that could have been brought to my attention yesterday!
Which is a fantastic little... I think she's only in that movie for about 35 seconds, but it's brilliant.
She kills it in the 35 seconds. Of course, the beautiful and wonderful actress, Christina Pickles.
Yeah.
So Courtney Cox and Christina Pickles in a movie together in 1987, long before... they were ever together on Friends. So that's great. And she is. In this movie, I did the math. She is 52 when this movie is coming out. So when I was like, is she 50? Yeah, she's 50.
So at this point in the movie, the crew is left. They don't have the cosmic key working. Gwildor doesn't think there's a chance to get back to Eternia because he doesn't know the combination. And it's discovered that the combination is actually musical notes. And because Kevin is a musician, he knows the musical notes. So he starts to hum it. They hatch a plan to, they need a couple items that luckily Tila and Man-at-Arms have, and they need one other item. They need a keyboard, so Kevin rips away to go find that, where he is spotted by Detective Lubick again, of course, because he's got to get back into the fold.
And in that moment, Lubick is bringing a bunch of cops to this disturbance who don't believe him that
they don't believe him at all.
They are just following this crazy old man because they have to. And when they show up, everything's gone and done. So of course he looks even worse. So he's pretty desperate. So he's got to get his man here at this point. Or else he just looks horrible.
He's probably losing his job. So back in Eternia, Skeletor is first they're torturing He-Man to try and get him to kneel. That doesn't pan out. And now the moon is aligning properly so that Skeletor can now steal the sorceress's power, which he manages to do.
The great eye opens. Yeah,
the great eye opens,
and that allows him to become the master of the universe.
Yes. I call him Gold Skeletor at this point.
Oh, great. I called him Super Saiyan mode, like in Goku. Gold Super Saiyan mode. Because like right before this too, he's like, hey man, like, could you like do me a favor? Like, give me a solid He-Man. Just kneel and everything. I'll feel pretty good about it. And
maybe
I'll never kneel to you.
Yeah.
He's
just
like,
put one knee on the ground. I don't even need to see on both. Just one knee.
Both.
Yeah, even just pretend you're tying your sandal.
Yeah, which wasn't furry, by the way.
So,
but anyway, but then he laser
whips Skeletor. Yeah, now we've got Gold Skeletor, who of course tries to force He-Man to kneel with lasers coming from his freaking eyeballs.
Yes, I loved this, by the way. I absolutely love this. Frank Langella's little monologue right before is just so good. Like if you read it on the page, if you like look up what he says on a piece of paper, you cannot believe anyone could take this seriously.
Do you hear? Huh? The Alpha and the Omega, death and rebirth, and as you die, so will I be reborn.
Because he just completely kills this line, and I'm just like watching him like on bated breath, like, oh my god, I'd follow you. You're pretty cool. I love it.
And he's got laser beams.
He got laser beams coming out of his eyes.
Crew, very serendipitous. They happen to crash the throw room with half a car, half a brick building.
They
all the
brought
weapons they need, everybody.
Yeah.
And this is one of my favorite parts of the movie, because instead of just opening fire on these people who have just shown up in the throne room, all of the soldiers wait for Skeletor to be like, destroy them. It's like, oh yeah, of course. Intruders. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So the
They
the
did need to wait.
The gunfight starts off. Yeah, the gunfight starts off. Skeletor is still trying to get He-Man to kneel at this point. Shoots off some electricity. He-Man uses the lightning bolt to break his bonds. And
because he's seen
he's
dodgeball,
free to go do about what he wants.
Dodged.
Yeah, he did a very good job. Yeah, so he dispatches his bunch of guards and mercenaries, and then for some reason he's hiding behind a giant statue and gets the idea to just push it over. The statue doesn't break anything when it lands. It doesn't land on anyone. He just pushes it over. Yeah. So at this point, we're just made to see how strong He-Man is. So he's a pretty strong guy. It was a very tall, very solid looking statue. It doesn't break, so it's obviously not hollow. And then he runs up to the top of the throne room.
Did you think it was like a giant Easter bunny or something? Like
I was hoping so.
Giant lid chocolates.
I just figured there was reinforcements maybe in there. Yeah. So
meanwhile, Gwilder's using the hook to snatch that, like he did chicken earlier in the movie, right before he chugged an entire cup of gravy, which somehow you didn't mention. You got a big beard. You know what it's like to get gravy all up in that beard. Darryn, how did that feel?
Not good.
No.
So He-Man runs up to the top of the throne and grabs the sword, which has been locked away by Skeletor into, it looks like a digital lock, but He-Man's apparently strong enough. Rips the sword out, and of course we are finally treated to the one of the best lines growing up as a kid. I have the power. Which unfortunately is a little anticlimactic, because in the cartoon, when Prince Adam says, I have the power, he is then turned into He-Man and then possibly turns Cringer into Battle Cat. But here we have just He-Man turning into He-Man. There's no change. Right. He's not. He doesn't clean up. He doesn't costume change. Nothing. He's just still Dolf Lundgren.
Right. And when you say still Dolf Lundgren, you mean a man who has trained himself to physical perfection. And I love this scene. I absolutely will watch it over and over again. But when I wrote in my notes, I have the lats, because I cannot believe the amount of beef underneath that armpit when he lifts that sword up, because he's been like hiding most of his muscles under a costume really for most of the show. It's true. Like this is a moment where like his full lat is exposed, and I'm not gonna lie, like it made me want to do push-ups or something. It was crazy.
I don't think that does the lats.
Oh, whatever. I don't care. I did 5 and I feel great.
Then we break into a very short sword fight between Gold Skeletor. He-Man basically fends him off for about 30 seconds, smashes the scepter in half. That breaks him back down to regular Skeletor. And there's an even more short fight between regular Skeletor and He-Man. And if you watch the choreography between the two, like it's almost like Skeletor wants to be thrown over over the edge.
And, he does not try hard to avoid the pit.
No, he certainly doesn't.
The entire movie.
So
it's not like he didn't know it. He walked past it.
So we're very Star Warsy in this moment. Skeletor goes flying over the edge into the pit of misery, dilly dilly, and Eternia is now safe.
Dilly dilly.
I
got some like Boba Fett vibes too, and he just kind of like, oh, I guess I'm falling now.
Oh dang! Yeah.
Oh dang!
So now that Eternia is safe, we fast forward to the celebration after everyone has had a chance to go home and shower.
I need to ask you this first. Before, they did. That's great. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to mention that next. But before I do, like, did you notice anything about the fight scene between He-Man and Skeletor that was strange to you? Like, first of all, it obviously looks different. There's like, it's all black.
Yes,
all
all the lights in the throne room
them.
go out. Yeah.
Yeah,
and nothing else is happening. It's just the two of them.
It's just the two of them, which a lot of people who watch this movie and tear it to pieces, that's one of the things they focus on, is like how weird and cheesy this ending is. And I absolutely loved the fact that they like collapsed it down into just two guys, because like, think about it, if you had a giant Skeletor magician, like a skeleton magician fighting a muscle-bound superhero, like, wouldn't you stop what you were doing and just kind of like turn and watch them? Like, I would kind of be like, dude, like, don't shoot at me for a second, I gotta see this, like, time out.
Yeah, at that point it is the main event. Yeah. Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
Just that all the lights go out. No.
Mm-hmm.
But what
Skeletor, to me, I wrote, did Skeletor just double in size? Because like, when he turns into that fight scene and he goes, "Shall this be our final battle?" and the second they clash their swords, Skeletor like doubles in size and gains like at least an extra 10 inches of height. Like, really? He absolutely thickens right up. If you watch it up again, you'll notice a sizable difference, to the point where I was like, I have to find out who was underneath that, because it wouldn't have been Frank Langella doing those fight scenes. And I looked it up, and it's the guy who played Blade. It was the same guy as who played Blade. Yeah, his name is
Jeff the accountant.
Yes, Jeff the accountant. Yes, yeah, chartered accountant now. Thanks to the
yes,
yeah. Anthony DeLongis was Blade, and he was also the stunt double for the final fight scene in the credits.
That makes a lot of sense.
The He-Man credits, yeah. So the guy who played Blade actually did all of that fight sequence until Reg Skeletor comes back, OG Skeletor.
So I got to go back to the first time first and only time really that He-Man crosses blades with Blade.
Yes.
Blade starts off with two swords, and he says, "I've been waiting my whole life for this." They start fighting. Mm-hmm. He-Man eventually takes one of Blade's swords away. And
yes.
You did notice this. What you may not have noticed,
swords him.
He takes his sword, and Blade actually yells out, "My sword!"
Hey,
it is so funny. Just a gold little
moment. I was just too busy watching something that I've been wanting to see in this movie for, at that point, like 40 minutes. I've wanted He-Man to sword fight with somebody, and I got what I wanted in that scene. And to be honest, I was kind of like, no, was that it? Maybe that's why they're using blasters the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, long story short, Dolf Lundgren at the time, maybe he's gotten better, just cannot wield a sword to save his life. So.
Fair enough.
Which is, I mean, he should have been able to, because it needed to save his life. So we have fast forwarded to the celebration. Everyone's had a chance to go home and shower.
Yeah, He-Man's mullet is back to just the sweet feathered, flowing locks.
He's got it styled. Yeah, he went to his hairdresser.
Got some polysporin on those whip cuts.
Yeah, at this point, we learn that Lubick has decided to stay behind. He spits off a line here that is just pure gold, and it's in my my list for you to choose from. So we'll go back to that.
God. Okay, so he's staying behind because he got himself a girlfriend, right?
He's got a castle.
Let's call it what it is.
He's got a castle and a view and a pretty woman, or a good-looking woman, he says. So he's going to stick around.
No,
frankly, I don't blame him. Earth's not that great. Eternia looks pretty good.
Yeah, I would stay too. My worry is the private parts don't line up. Like, has he done the research? Like, I don't know what Eternian junk looks like. There's Star Trek genitals with on Beast's knees. You know what I mean? Like we're not really sure. Like, my worry for him is I think he's going to be a little upset come the night of the wedding night. I think I'm just a little
could
concerned.
Be. So Man-at-Arms quickly explains to Julie that they don't say goodbye from Eternia. They say good journey, wish each other a good journey. So the crew all says good journey to each other, and Kevin and Julie are headed home to Earth. Just as she's getting into the portal, she yells back to Gwildor to send her back to the time before the parents are gone, which Gwildor obviously doesn't have time to readjust where they're going, because Kevin's already through.
And the portal's already open.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
Gwildor
not
did
happening.
mention he could take her back to any place and any time ever.
Anytime. So,
and she doesn't realize she can make that change
At
until
the
the
time.
absolute last second.
Exactly. So they head back home, and you find out that they have been, in fact, transported back to a time before Julie's parents had been killed in the plane crash. So Gwildor must have known that going in advance. Otherwise, he's got the fastest fingers in the biz, and Lubick better watch his back.
Maybe he opened a portal to the portal on Earth that took him back a year.
It could be, yes.
We're really head.
I doubt it. I think just Gwildor's. I think Gwildor's just a very empathetic and intuitive being.
I think he's just bad at his job, and he literally got it wrong by a year. Yeah. Good enough.
So Julie heads downstairs. Her parents are still alive. It's the day that they're going out when they should be dying. She steals the car keys and runs out of the front door. Kevin is in the middle of the street to greet her, and they look at a nice glowing marble that they were given in Eternia, and in the middle of it is He-Man standing there, sword in hand. I have the power, and the movie
Castle Grayskull in the background. It's the ultimate scene, right?
Yes, it's a very good
fully
nod.
Geared.
And then we have I don't know if it's the original, but I mean, it certainly was well ahead of Marvel Studios in the end of the credits, little cut
post-credit scene,
yeah, where Skeletor comes out of a pit, out of the bottom of the pit of misery, dilly, and is covered in goo, and he says,
trying to make Star Wars happen.
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
So
he does literally say, I'll be back.
Unfortunately, he didn't. We have not seen him come back, but someday maybe.
No, maybe. We're going to talk about that. So the reason why she talks before she gets that gem and sees He-Man, like they have to make sure that she knows and the audience knows that it wasn't a dream, like it all actually happened.
Yeah,
Darren, when she takes the car keys and her parents are telling her to give them back, did you notice the dad in that scene? He is giving her a level 5 dad look. Like, I'm sorry, I'm glad they're still alive, but she is so grounded. She is so grounded.
She's done.
She's
and good
got
luck
2
explaining
weeks
that
in the
one.
can. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so at least she gets to keep her job at whatever that off-brand KFC was.
Yeah, it was some Chicken Hut. Yeah,
Chicken Hut.
KFC Chicken Hut. No, it was like a rib joint or something. Yeah.
Now we'll just go through a couple things here that I have for you to pick, and then I'll also give my selection too. So the best costume award.
Okay.
I have 3 for you to choose from.
I'm
One
on it.
is Beastman. And I will say that originally Beastman was on my worst costume list. And then I did a throwback in my brain to what Bigfoot looked like last week.
Right.
And
are you kidding me?
I realized that Beastman was actually pretty on point, and especially for 30 years in the past. So I put Beastman as 1. Gwildor is the other.
Okay.
And Man-at-Arms is actually the 3rd, because I thought Man-at-Arms, although it was a pretty simple costume, they did a good job of keeping it pretty to the point. It kind of looked like a more human version of RoboCop.
Yeah, I like it.
Of those 3, I'll get you to choose your best costume.
Okay, so I've got Gwildor, who is Gwildor, of course, played by Billy Barty, right? 3'9" man, who's been in 100 movies. So he's wearing the full face prosthetic. He's got the fuzzy hair, the big ears. They can obviously spray mud.
He does
that
spray
was one
mud.
of the scenes before. You didn't even mention that they met a cow. I can't believe that. That was so important to the plot that they met a cow.
He tries to communicate with the cow.
Yes, he sure does.
Moo.
So we've got Gwildor, we've got Man-at-Arms, and we've got Beastman. Beastman used up all the KY jelly with that face. He was a rubbery, slippery mess. And then you got Man-at-Arms, who, like you said, looks like a low-rent RoboCop, who's always hungry somehow. I'm gonna give it to. I'm going off script. I'm giving it to Tila, because she had to wear what I think was the most uncomfortable thong ever created. Did you see this thing?
The thong.
It
the
was
thong
like
on top of the bodysuit.
She was wearing her outfit, and then on top was like this metal rigid thong chastity belt that she has. Yeah, and like it's ridiculous. Like I noticed it, and I was like, I cannot believe that this even exists. No, okay, I'm gonna give it to Beastman because like you said, I thought for the amount of work that guy did in the movie, where he beat up two dudes, which by the way, Carl the janitor survives somehow. Beastman doesn't kill a single person, but yeah, for all the action that he was in, and the costume looked great. I'm gonna give it to Beastman if I have to stay within the lines.
All right. So then,
give it to
my
He-Man.
My selection for Beastman would have is Man at Arms, because they kept it simple, they kept it true, and it was believable for a warrior's costume. Tila might have made that, right, except for it wasn't believable for a warrior's costume. Like, why would you have a metal thong?
Right. And a gray bodysuit that doesn't protect you at all. She looked great, though. She did look great.
Yeah, she did.
All the costumes looked cool. Yeah, I really didn't like Evil Lynn.
That actually brings us to the worst costume award. So the worst costumes I had, Evil Lynn was one of them.
Of course.
The Darth Vader soldiers was another one, because everybody just looking like little mini Darth Vaders to me was poor costume choice. And then the third one, maybe surprising, He-Man.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't believe that the cape or the shoulder pads were necessary.
Right.
Really, if He-Man is he's an obviously almost invincible, menacing figure. He needs very little protection, which is why he's bare-chested and just wearing a loincloth. So to me, it made no sense why he would wear steel shoulder pads and a cape.
Right.
And also gladiator sandals. To me, were just weird. So the costume, choice. I feel like they should have stayed a little bit more true to that, and it would have been easier and more believable. So those are my three choices for worst costume.
So it's the Stormtrooper wannabes, Evil Lynn, who I feel like Evil Lynn didn't look fantastic, but I don't think she would win the worst dressed costume, because she did actually have a menacing presence. So it comes down to either the Stormtroopers or He-Man. And I'm going to go with you on this one. I got to give it to He-Man. The costume, the shoulder pads to me made no sense. He didn't use them ever. I dug the cape, though. I have to admit, I dug the cape. But the lack of furry boots and the shoulder pads to me was just I loved the cape, but it wasn't enough to push me over the top. And with those other guys, the henchmen, they looked what they needed to look like. You didn't need to see their faces. They could be disposed of easily. You could tell your kids that they were robots so that no one was actually killed. You could definitely pass them off as that. So, I think they look good. I mean, they were an obvious ripoff, but
that to me was the problem with them, was they were a blatant attempt at being stormtroopers. Right. So so then we have, for me, disappointments. I had 3 disappointments listed, and you can rank these or discuss however you want. One disappointment to me was there was no Prince Adam. The transformation from Prince Adam to He-Man was always a favorite part. The fact that Dolf Lundgren possibly never held a sword before day one of filming, to me, was really disappointing. He was
absolutely
atrocious swinging that sword. And those are my two. Those are my two, actually, of the biggest disappointment. I think the big one would be no Prince Adam. I thought they could have added 5 minutes maybe at the beginning where he turns into He-Man,
and then just stays that way for the entire movie.
Psych some fans up. Yeah.
You'd have to cast that guy, though. Right?
Yeah.
Because Dolph Lundgren couldn't be both roles.
No, I think you could do that easily enough, though.
I think you could? Yeah.
But then the saving graces for me were 2 actors taking over the movie. One being Skeletor. I thought Frank Langella was amazing. He did really good at delivering and being very evil and menacing, and was very believable. And then the other one might be surprising. I thought Gwildor was through the roof.
Really?
He was awesome. He was believable.
You're a Gwildor fan, eh?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Saved the movie for you.
Yeah, saved it. Yeah, he was amazing. And then, of course, the what I have as the best, my favorite character, I should say. Actually, I'll get you to give you. Let's have yours first.
Sure.
And then I'll tell you mine was.
Yeah, my biggest disappointment was the lack of battle cat. I totally understand why they couldn't do it. Puppets would have been their best bet, and I'm sure they might have tried it, and it just wasn't working. But yeah, not seeing battle cat, I mean, that part would be a huge disappointment for any fan of the series. So I would say that would be a disappointment, but a saving grace for me is just the absolute killer performance of Frank Langella and Meg Foster. I loved their relationship in this movie. Like, Evelyn is his subordinate. He treats her like garbage. She stands up to him a little bit. Like, there's like a scene where I really realized that Meg Foster understands his character 100%. And like, she's in some pretty cool movies too. Meg Foster's in They Live, and she's in Overlord, that movie where it's like the zombie Nazis, like the Call of Duty kind of like action horror movie. She's in some pretty cool flicks. She's also in like Xena, Hercules, and Sliders. And like, there's a scene where like he literally puts his hand on her back and pushes her into the next role that he wants her to fulfill, and she does not want to do it. I just killed Snake Guy, go and fill his spot and go actually get this thing done. And there's a moment where they all bow, and she does like almost like it's like a microscopic head tilt. Like, she's just like, you know, like she's gonna bow, but it's gonna be the absolute smallest you can possibly bow. And that's when I was like, oh yeah, Meg Foster, you're killing this. So like, those two, they're saving
I wonder if that was a half bow, or if she was just worried that fruit bowl was going to fall off the top of her head.
That is a good point. Damn you, Darren. Damn you. That fruit bowl could have went flying. She could have curtsied. She could have did like one of those old school curtsy things. That would have been
amazing. Very Evelyn. Yeah,
it's Tila. She does so much with so little. Tila absolutely owns the room every time she's in it. There's the scene where she comes back in from the music to the music room, and she's blasting guys and saving her dad, and she looks right at the camera, almost turns to the fans, and she goes,
"Woman at arms."
Absolutely love that kind of stuff.
The
scene where she first meets Monica, and He-Man's carrying her out, and he's kind of taking care of her because she's scared. And He-Man asks her, he goes, "Did you guys have any luck?" And Tila goes, "No, not as much as you, apparently."
Not as much as you.
Not as much as you, apparently. She wants that He-Man dick. And like, you know, she wants it. And like, she doesn't have to say it. Right? She wants the power, man.
Tila's a good choice.
She does so much, so little.
My favorite character in the movie is also probably my least favorite character. Detective Lubick.
I knew you were going there. I knew it.
Takes over. He's an insanely frustrating character, but he just constantly says funny stuff. Like, he runs out of the music store. He's outnumbered 5-1. He's got a shotgun. He says, what does he say? "Police, freeze." They all turn around with laser guns, and he yells, or he jumps behind his own car. They blow it up with their lasers. And then in the aftermath of this, somehow he's not injured or dead. He's covered in soot, and he goes, "Oh shit, I think I need some backup." And he just does
getting completely owned.
The dumbest bravado in the whole movie, but he just provides me with so many gems. So
that's great.
That's my guy. That's my guy, and my least favorite guy.
That car he destroys is a Firebird, and it's like a late 60s Firebird, and it is so pretty. And they actually destroy that car for this movie.
Tell you what, it sure lived up to its name.
Oh, it sure did.
That sucker lit up. All right,
like
so
the 4th of July.
I have 4 lines for you to choose from for what my favorite were. The first one, and this is chronological. So this is well after, when they're in the music store and they're getting ready for the invasion of the wannabe stormtroopers. He-Man looks to Man-at-Arms and says, "How do you feel?" And Man-at-Arms looks back and he says, "I feel a little hungry." It's just a great line. The feel I get from Man-at-Arms is that he is a soldier who has been lucky enough to stick around and become an old man. And it's just dumb luck. And also father of super hot daughter.
Stumbled into it. He's like that guy from Starship Troopers who just everyone good around him kept dying and he kept climbing the ranks.
Exactly.
That's how Man-at-Arms got to the highest position.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So that's my first
Man-at-Arms Roughneck.
I feel a little hungry.
Yeah,
So,
I feel a little hungry.
The next line is delivered by Gwildor.
Yes.
And it's when Kevin says that he's nothing. He's only a drummer in a high school band.
Mhm.
And there's a million of them. And Gwildor looks at him and says, "Only one of you, Kevin. Only one of everybody." I thought that was a pretty cool line. Nothing
cool.
really funny
Except
or
with
fancy about it,
twins.
but a neat line.
It is a good line, actually. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
So then the third line I have is from He-Man, of course, and you can choose either one of the times he says it, but it's "I have the power" when he's holding the sword up, because that has to be in there.
Right.
And then the fourth and final line is delivered by my man, Detective Lubick, when Kevin asks him, "Are you not coming back to Earth?" And he looks around and he says, "What are you kidding? What am I going to go back there for? Look what I got here. I got a castle. I got a view. I got a clean air. I got a beautiful woman." And at this moment, his beautiful woman, who is on his arm, leans in for a kiss, and he swerves it like boss.
Oh,
and
my
then he goes,
God.
and
The
then he leans in
sunglasses
closer to
just
Kevin,
drop
and he's
onto
like,
him.
he leans in closer to Kevin, and he licks his lip on the inside. He goes,
Some kind of retirement, huh?
and at that moment, Detective Lubick became my favorite character.
Your hero.
Just a gem. And then he dodges yet another kiss from his beautiful woman.
Oh, my God. I don't know if I could give it to Lubick.
Those are my 4 lines.
Good. Of course, the runner-up would have to be when Dolf Lungren says, while handcuffed to Skeletor while he's on his 4th of July parade float, and he's getting handcuffed, and he's like, "I don't want innocent people to die."
His delivery is so bad.
I don't want innocent people to die.
So good. Oh, my God. Okay, I'm going to go with, just because I loved it as much as you, I'm going to go with Gwildor. I'm going to go with Gwildor saying, "Only one of you, only one of any of us." Because at that moment, Tom Paris needed a pick-me-up. He wasn't feeling confident enough to do what he needed to do, and his woman's life was literally on the line. And at that point, like, that's one thing about this movie, man. There's points where you're really behind the characters and you believe what they're doing. And that's to the actors, man. They did a great job.
Except Dolph Lundgren. He was dog shit.
Yeah, but you know what? We got to give this guy some credit, okay? Like, let's talk about Dolph Lundgren for a second. We have to, yes.
Right.
Dolph Lundgren's a Swedish actor, first of all. Okay. He has a master's in chemical engineering from the University of Sydney. He was a graduate of MIT in 1982. Like, this guy's pretty smart. Like, he didn't know English in 87. So, like, all of his lines were read to him phonetically, and he was told at the beginning of this movie, according to some research, "Don't worry about any of your lines. We're going to dub them back in later," because he was learning English at the time. And they said, "Don't worry, we'll do them all ADR after the fact." And they started doing that. And that's when the budget completely collapsed, because Canon Films was paying $5 million a week in interest at the time. And they had ran long on Masters of the Universe and had started filming Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, which is another like $20 million movie. So they just said, "Nope, we got to keep your lines in, buddy. Sorry." And he was just like, "Oh, I wanted to do those again, once I learned English."
Yeah. That would have been good.
Hilarious. So man, like the guy did a great job. But like you said, I guarantee he didn't get any training. He didn't have time to train. He, in every interview I've ever seen him in, he like completely goes back and forth. He says it's a cute little film. He was a little embarrassed to make it, but he does like it. So you know what? Like, I'm okay with that. And this guy was in Rocky IV in 1985, puts on what I can only explain as minimum 30 pounds of muscle for Masters of the Universe in 87. And then he was in The Punisher in 1989. Like, this guy's all over our like childhood, man.
Yeah.
Like, he is just in everything.
Yeah.
So you know what?
All right, I'll give it to you.
I love you, Dolph. I love you. And I would have watched the sequel that they would have made, because they had planned for a sequel starring Dolph Lundgren, and he said absolutely no. And the plot for the sequel of Masters of the Universe 2 was He-Man goes back to Earth to be undercover as a high school football quarterback.
I don't think he would have made it undercover. Jesus.
Story like that's gotta be true.
That movie
Gotta
writes
be.
itself.
Oh my god!
All right,
That
so
one would have been on our list too.
we are now out of time, so we have
what
to
a pleasure
bid the
that was.
adieus.
Well, we
So
gotta say,
on
man, if we're gonna review it, we gotta say, did you like it? You gotta do this.
I
man.
absolutely loved it.
Good.
Yes. It's a movie that I've easily watched 25 to 30 times. I plan on watching it a few more times. It's great. It's a good hour and a half time killer. Do not go in hoping that you're going to see tremendous acting, but you do get a little bit of it from a couple characters. Sure. And an absolute must see.
An hour and 47 minutes of time that you would not be wasting. I absolutely agree. I love this movie. I was a little worried to pull it apart for this podcast because I didn't know if it was going to hold up to scrutiny. But you know what? All of its mistakes are honest, and none of them take away from the fun. So I absolutely love this movie. It's fun. It's fun, and you don't have to take it serious, and you can just enjoy it. My wife made it 37 minutes into it, which to me, that was a huge win. I was like, oh, man, she made it in so far. It's only 37 minutes. Okay, good night. And then, but fantastic. Like, fair. So, but it's great.
Yeah.
Hurricane David is poised to be the first hurricane.
It's a storm. That's what's driven them all up north.
I've never seen so many of them nor so bold.
It's barely even raining.
It's flooding here. And not the plumbing, the ocean.
You need to go home.
I'm not going anywhere.
Storm's coming and it's coming fast. Just can't sit back and watch this.
Tornado's heading towards the airport. We need to destroy it before it gets to them. Watch out!
You can't just wait here and wait for sharks to rain down on us.
We're gonna throw bombs into the tornadoes.
It's too dangerous. Too many of them. We're gonna need a bigger chopper.
Claudia, move!
It's time to leave Kansas, mate.
And Frank Langella is like at a whole new level because he just completely killed